Before I begin, I'd like to dedicate this very special video to my patrons at patreon.com/Rebecca. These are incredible people like Todd Christiansen and Michael Jones and MC Bois and Cassie Underhill and Maggie McPhee. You're all just so great and your support means so much to me, especially at a time like this when I'm putting out a video that is absolutely, without a doubt, going to be demonetized by YouTube because I'm going to be talking about dildos and anal beads and sexual pleasure and sexual health. And not only that, but I'm not going to bleep anything out because we're all grown-ass adults here. This channel is for grown-ass adults. Let's just treat each other like grown-ass adults. And to make matters worse, I'm saying all of this in the first 30 seconds of this video. So yeah, there's no way YouTube is going to be okay with this. So thank you so much to my patrons. I really appreciate your support. By the way, if you'd like to become a patron, go to patreon.com/Rebecca. You get extra stuff like newsletters and live streams. Or you could just like and subscribe to this channel. That it helps the algorithm, as does leaving a comment. But for today, maybe considering the topic, just think long and hard, so to speak, before you hit that enter key to figure out whether the comment you're leaving is funny or really creepy. It's just a little tip, so to speak. As an example, none of the double entendres I just made were funny, but they also weren't creepy. So that's important. Okay, today we're talking about a new study published in Microplastics and Nanoplastics that found sex toys can shed both micro and nanoplastic particles, and they can also contain hazardous levels of phthalates that are known to screw with your body's hormones, including substances that might affect fertility. However, this study did not investigate how these chemicals are released from these toys under normal use, nor did it examine a wide array of toys at different price points from respected brands. The authors are very clear about the fact that this study is not to be used to fearmonger, but to stimulate, so to speak, further discussion and further investigation. Got it? Good. And so there are several reasons why I wanted to make a video about this for a general audience. First, because there's a chance that the mainstream news might pick up on this study but miss the memo about the fear-mongering. Second, I wanted to encourage other scientists who may see this to see that it is a popular subject that deserves more attention. And third, because I want to encourage the average person to learn more about how the sex products they purchase and use might be impacting their health. And I do mean that this is applicable to the average person, or at least the average American adult, because surveys show that most of us use sex toys. Specifically, just under half of American heterosexual men, more than half of heterosexual women, 70.6% of lesbian women, 79.7% of bisexual women, and 78.5% of gay or bisexual men report using a vibrator at some point in their lives. So this isn't just some niche product that most of you watching this video shouldn't care about. Statistically speaking, more of you have used a vibrator for sexual pleasure than own an iPhone. And yes, it's close, but it's true. I looked it up. 86 to 92% of Americans own a smartphone, and of that number, less than half own an iPhone. So, I was going to do the math. Anyway, let's talk about this study. Researchers at Duke, specializing in chemical engineering, bought 4 commercially available sex toys, 3 of each. They got a rabbit dildo, which is designed to be inserted vaginally, anal beads that are inserted into the anus, a vibrator designed to be inserted into the anus, and a vibrator that is meant to be used externally for clitoral stimulation. They took samples of each toy and they pressed them against a rotating glass file that allowed them to collect particles. Again, this is probably not how most of us would use these toys. The researchers write that this initial standard method was applied as proof of concept in line with work on other product matrices. This is the first step in testing the safety of products for things like children's toys. And I know it's super uncomfy to talk about children's toys in the same breath as sex toys, but the authors of this paper say that it's an important comparison. Both categories are products that are likely to come into frequent contact with the sensitive mucous membrane, but only one of these categories is regulated to ensure the products don't contain potentially dangerous chemicals. Amusingly, back in the early 2000s, I remember shopping at Seattle's Babes in Toyland and learning about their Japanese dildos, which have these weird little faces on them where the frenulum would be. And the owner explained to me that the dildo, by putting a face on it, it made it a doll, which allowed them to sell it out of Japan with fewer restrictions. Now, when looking up verification on this for this video, I found a lot of people pointing out that this is why so many Japanese vibrators look exactly like toys. But let me tell you, these straight up look like big old Technicolor dicks with the tiniest, creepiest little face hidden on it. Like, such a clear fuck you to government regulation that it should honestly be on the libertarian flag. And I was really sad to not be able to find a picture of it, but I did find a thread on the Straight Dope suggesting that the face may have been not enough to make it look like a doll, but to just make it fanciful to avoid regulation. But my point stands, it wasn't even fanciful, it was just creepy. Anyway, from that abrasion test, the researchers did in fact find nano and microplastics. The worst performer, so to speak, was the anal vibrator, followed by the anal beads, and then the vaginal vibrator, as illustrated in this delightful chart. The external vibrator performed the best, though it still did have some micro and nanoplastics. This is the opposite of what we would hope, considering that the worst performers were all the toys that spend the most time in contact with the most permeable part of the body. They then also tested additional samples for their chemical makeup, finding that all 4 sex toys contained phthalates that are either over the 0.1 weight percentage limit or banned under REACH, Registration, Evaluation, Authorization, and Restriction of Chemicals by the European Chemicals Agency in the EU. For clarification, this applies to children's toys, but it's not illegal to sell currently as sexual wellness products. Now, if you don't know, phthalates are chemicals that are added to plastics in order to make them more durable, which is why they're also sometimes known as plasticizers, but that word can also apply to other non-phthalate things, so I'm going to continue to use the word phthalates. There are many different kinds of phthalates, and an entire army of researchers are currently at work trying to figure out exactly how they affect humans. Studies on phthalates in humans have found a correlation with decreased sexual desire, greater risk of dying of any cause, and greater risk of dying of heart problems. Many more problems, like malformed genitals and infertility, have been found in tests on rats. So, they're not necessarily chemicals that you want inside of you, though much like microplastics and nanoplastics, they end up inside all of us at some point in some quantity regardless, because that's just the world we live in. But if you can limit them, you probably should. Again, this study is not proof that these toys are dangerous. The researchers point out that this should encourage more research in order to understand how many of these chemicals can get into humans using these products normally, and how those chemicals in those quantities would actually affect humans. But this should encourage you to take some actions and to think critically about some things. First, think about where you're getting the products that you're putting in your body. Scientists recommend that people stick to products made entirely of glass, silicone, and stainless steel. Unfortunately, sometimes manufacturers lie about their products. In this very study, the researchers note that one of the products that they tested was explicitly advertised as phthalate-free despite being not that. The external vibrator was advertised as being made of medical-grade silicone despite containing micro and nanoplastics, as well as a greater total number of different phthalates than any other product tested. The toys that were tested, it's worth noting, are all fairly inexpensive products found on Amazon. Quality products are going to cost more. Like, okay, the rabbit that is on Amazon is listed at $75, but realize that that's a knockoff of the original rabbit, which is $159 and is apparently made of 100% body-safe silicone materials. But, is that advertising honest? That may be a trusted company, But how sure can we be that they're telling the truth? Which brings me back to the question of government regulation. There are some vibrators that are sold as medical devices to treat disorders like sexual dysfunction or pelvic floor issues, and thus they are regulated here in the US by the Food and Drug Administration. But the vast majority of sex toys are completely unregulated, at least in terms of safety. You know, remember how Japan had those strict laws regarding sex toys? Well, I should note that apparently that regulation wasn't about safety, but about obscenity. And before you get all judgy, you know, several US states have also banned the sale of sex toys for puritanical reasons, with the most notable probably being Alabama's Anti-Obscenity Enforcement Act, which passed in 1998 and is still enforced today. And yet, no government regulations exist to stop sex toy manufacturers from including potentially hazardous chemicals in their products. Should they? Well, Alabama's law illustrates why that would be difficult to do, because sex toys are actually still sold in Alabama, but they're sold as novelties and gag gifts and toys. Any regulation for safety would face the exact same problem, which is why many experts call for a broader ban on the actual chemicals, as argued in this note from the Senior Enforcement Counsel at the Office of the Minnesota Attorney General. He points out that phthalates like DEHP, which is correlated with birth defects and cancers, are in so many products right now that at this point, the only sensible action would be for Congress to just ban the sale of anything containing it entirely, you know, not just children's toys, not just cosmetics or sex toys, but anything and everything that might get anywhere near the inside of somebody's body. He certainly has a point, but in order for that to happen, we would need a lot more research done on exactly how these chemicals affect us, which we should really be doing anyway, and which we are. That research is ongoing. If you're interested in hearing more about the potential toxins lurking in our products and what we should do about them, check out this video I made back in March about whether or not California should ban Skittles. And in the meanwhile, please practice safe sex, whether you're alone or with others. So not just by using condoms and birth control, but by only letting the very highest quality toys all up in your business. I know that they cost more, but I assure you, you're worth it. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.